Hi, I'm Alex. I had an idea that I could do a bit of a series, if you guys end up enjoying it, where I introduce characters from the different stories I'm working on. For example, in this video, I'm going to go over some things about one of my characters from my current vampire novel that I'm drafting. In another one, I might do a character from my Tolkien-esque story. Just picking characters at random, I guess. Or maybe put a poll up on Instagram or something. At any rate, as I said, today I'm going to be introducing a character from my vampire novel, Blood Brothers. And that would be Dmitri Petrov. None of this is going to be in any particular order because I wrote down the things I thought that were important or interesting, kind of just as I thought of them, or, well, not thought of them. Dmitri Petrov is the eldest of the main clan in the story at 160 years old. He was born in Moscow, Russia, spent a good chunk of his life there, even after being turned. Speaking of which, he was turned at 29 and was or is a former pianist. At the time he was turned, he was actually well on his way to being pretty well known. That crashed and burned real fast after being turned, but he was and is pretty skilled at it. He is ambidextrous, which I don't know if it's actually a thing for a pianist to be or not, but you would think that'd be useful. For all the research I put into that story, you would think I would have researched something as simple as that, but he has a phobia of clowns and medical needles. Not other needles, just medical ones, which, by the way, there is a side story of him literally breaking a dude's face because he was a clown who startled him. That doesn't make it into the book, but that is a thing. One of the things that if you are a stranger meeting Dmitri, he's got two expressions that you actively recognize: calm or annoyed. There is no in between. He is not the talkative sort. Now, whereas everyone else who knows him, the clan, they recognize the fact that, oh yeah, the resting annoyed face, not quite resting bitch face, but definitely resting annoyed face, that's not necessarily accurate to what's going on mentally, but that's what kind of comes across. One of the things you find out pretty early on in the story, and I did say this was really random and I guess more rambly than anything, so I guess you could take these as one of those less structured videos. Pretty early on in the story, you find out that he has a connection to the youngest in the clan, Oliver. The connection is mostly empathic in that they can sense each other's emotions, unless it is extreme. Even in extreme cases where they kind of, Oliver were to panic severely, Dmitri might get the idea of, oh, danger, but it's still in the sense of like, I feel scared and like I'm in danger. So it's like an emotional message, if you will. And for the majority of it, they don't have any idea of what caused this bond. They don't know where it came from. They don't know what caused it. They don't know anything other than they have it. Oliver was turned and the bond snapped into place. On a note of levity, and after something like that, Dmitri, against all odds of, considering he spends all of his time like playing piano here, there, practicing, writing music, whatever, he collects classic cars. And not like they sit in the garage and don't, no, like he collects them, he drives them, he fixes them. He is like, the reason the clan has as many cars as they do is Dmitri. Frankly, they'd probably settle for one nice looking car for meetings and one utility car for missions. But Dimitri's like, no, we're gonna have some nice cars in this place. Nice to the point that one of the most expensive cars, if not the most expensive car, and I had to research this because I know nothing about cars. So if any of you know anything about cars, this one's gonna... He has a 19... And yes, I've got to read this because there's no way I can remember this whole thing on my own. A 1960 Ferrari 250 GT LWB California Spider Competiz... How do you even say this? Competizione? For those who don't know cars, you're looking at a $10 million car? Apparently, this thing has a price tag on it. And that seems ridiculous, right? Like, ridiculous. No one can afford a car like that. Except when you think about something. When that car was made, that's not how much that car was. And mercenaries make a lot of money. It can feed a lot of habits. It made sense. Will it stay like that? I don't know. Occasionally, even I sit there and look at it and go, would that really make sense for him to have a car that expensive? I'm looking at a lot of the initial details I put in, and to be perfectly honest, that car doesn't actually make it into the story. Most of the cars that are mentioned aren't even mentioned by a brand. They're just, oh, this is a nice car. One of the things Dmitri never let go of was his music. Partially because he spent so much time working toward it, he wasn't going to let it go. But partially because he has a gift. Gifts are actually kind of rare in this story. There are 3 characters in total of all the characters you meet who have gifts in Blood Brothers. Dmitri being one of them. And his ability is to influence others when he plays piano, which was actually something he had as a mortal. And he inherited from his grandfather, who could do the same thing except with violin. Theoretically, the ability is not necessarily related to the instrument, it's them. But when you pick an instrument, you kind of stay in that realm. But because he never let go of playing the piano, partially for that reason, he ended up doing a lot of things with it. One of the other members of his clan has a micro brew pub, I think they're called. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. The things I can't remember about a story I'm working on. But he will play there on occasion. Especially if there's something going on that makes the atmosphere in the pub really tense. He'll play to just wipe that feeling out of the air and calm everyone down. He also, at one point, ended up going to school because he just figured he might as well because he had the time, and got a BA in music business. I didn't write too much into that. I had mostly written it as an interesting fact even when I was designing the character, because I wanted them to be involved in the world outside of the clan itself. My theory was, since a couple of the characters had lives really outside the clan as far as jobs and stuff, that maybe Dmitri had thought that he'd go into that for a while, maybe work for a company or start one, and it just never really... He ended up not doing it, but he still had the degree out of it, and that was enough. Dimitri's just one of those characters. He's actually one of the hardest characters for me to write, because he is actually quite a bit different from me, because I don't do a lot to hide what I'm feeling or thinking. Like, if I'm angry or whatever, you know I'm angry. If I'm upset, you know I'm upset. It's all here, and Dimitri's not. It's really interesting to have to write him. I say have to as if I don't want to, but I do. But it's interesting to write him because you can tell, even as he wasn't like super upper class, but you can tell he definitely had never really struggled for a lot. So he's an interesting character for me to write. I don't know about for you guys to learn about, because obviously this is just skeleton random facts that I spit out. But let me know if you think this is a good idea for a series. Maybe I can structure it in a way that's less rambly and makes more sense. If you want to see more of this, Would you like to see another character from this series? Would you like to hear one of the characters from my Tolkien series, or Tolkien-esque series, I should say? Or would you like to hear about or hear one of the characters from one of the... I don't know if I've disclosed that I wrote another series that's about essentially bards, but I have characters from that I can share as well. If you want to hear more, let me know if you want to hear from one of those. Is there a character you've written that you particularly like? Just tell me stuff. Give me a random fact about one of your characters. I love hearing that stuff. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.